Hello everybody and welcome back to Dylan's O-Gauge Trains, and today I would like to do a little small review on the Lionel Thomas, as from what I've seen on the internet, this Thomas is mostly bashed around as being like the worst Thomas and as a model, which is kind of true. I mean, it does have its flaws, but I think it kind of has its quirks that kind of make it special. So let's get into it. Okay, so a brief history is that Thomas was created in 1946 when Audrey's son Christopher asked for a model of an engine for Christmas, but he wanted Gordon. However, after Audrey did several measurements, Gordon was too large, so instead he made a little tank engine, and Christopher asked his father, well, why don't we have him in one of the books? And Audrey said, sure, what do you want to name him? And he said, well, why don't we name him Thomas? So from there, Thomas continued to grow, going through several modifications, as Audrey depicted Thomas originally as a J50. However, several artists and illustrators constantly messed this up. For example, the first artist, Reginald Dalby, depicted Thomas as an E2 during the first draft of Thomas's first book. However, Audrey was unsatisfied with this because he wanted Thomas as the J50. But since Reginald was from the Southern and the Southern E2s were around then, he decided to depict it as an E2. And then through the years, Thomas would continue through as a book series until eventually Audrey was approached by series creator Britt Allcroft to create Thomas into a full-on TV show that has still been growing to this day. Okay, so now let's get into a little bit of a closer up of the model. So for the most part of this Thomas is that it's completely all made of just plastic. Now, I would expect this mostly from a toy. I would have rather had Thomas been made like metal like the other LionChief engines, but Thomas's body is, I kid you not, all in plastic. Like you can even see it from inside of the cab. And another thing I would wish they would probably do a touch-up on is the whistle, as I am honestly not a fan of these whistles. It just doesn't look right, in my opinion. I think they're a little bit ugly, but at the same time, kind of understandable because it is a LionChief engine. But you can even see the print lines where it was sealed together in the factory. You can see it from right here. And obviously, this face is just not that great. I much prefer the 1994 one. But going underneath the engine, it looks alright. I mean, again, with the chassis being too small and that large gap, you can even see the motor just sitting right there in the back. And just So I don't even have words to describe this model, but let's move around back a bit. So around back, I think gets the worst when it comes to detail. I mean, the co-load's fine, but they didn't even bother to put a little coupling hook like they did here on the front, which I think kinda lazy. I wish they would have also made the tail lamp more removable, or even put a little light at the end of it. But hey, this is a starter set engine, and judging from the size of it, doesn't seem like there's much of an interior to it, since most of it is plastic. But now let's flip out over this model and check out the underside. Okay, so I have Thomas on my lap, and Thomas uses two much large traction tires. The parts that you're mainly going to need to lube for this model are usually around near the rods, inside the crack, inside the new arches here and there. Obviously, you're gonna have to scrub the back part, but even underneath the model, like a lot of the body shell is just complete plastic. And also, to tell if your engine is a LionChief Thomas, you'll usually have the Bluetooth logo and information on it, and you can even see the buffers poking out from like right here from the shell, which I just made a note of because I don't know, it just looks kind of weird because these buffers, definitely if a young kid was playing with this, could probably easily come off or get lost. Other than that, it's pretty fine. You can even see a little bit of the wire and motor there. You also have to probably open up this part in order to like grease the gears so that way Thomas can run right. And speaking of running, let's get into a little run session of this model. Okay, so now since this is a LionChief model, you'll first start hearing this little chirp. This means that Thomas is looking for a remote to connect to, as most LionChief engines do. So you just flip it on, and the sounds will start. So Thomas has 3 sounds. He has his whistle, then he has his bell, which is not really at all accurate, but... And then he has a couple of announcements. Now, these announcements are a little bit different from 2013 version with the Sir Topham Hatt announcements, but with these, instead, it's Thomas.
All aboard! Alright! Full steam ahead!
He has a couple of other ones that he says while he's moving, so I'll show you.
Number 1 engine coming through! We're rocking around!
Overall, I'd say the sounds are okay for the most part. I wish they were a little bit better, but since this was 2019, I can get the sounds up hard to go. So now, let's let this guy have a little bit of action around the layout. And speaking of the layout, I have finally soldered a good chunk of my layout, so now my trains will run a lot smoother. And I've also ballasted some areas outside of the yard. So let's go ahead and let Thomas run, and I can show you all. Okay, so just as a little note before we start running, I don't know if this is like an issue with all Lionel Thomases or if it's just mine, but when I start Thomas at a slow speed going near any switch, he'll kind of just slow down and almost get stalled on it. I don't know if this is an issue with any other people's Lionel Thomas or mine's just getting old, but I just kind of wanted to point that out. Okay, so that's going to do it for the Lionel LionChief Thomas review. And to be honest, This model isn't terrible. I think it's a little bit overhated. I can definitely see where the hate is with, again, the face and the proportions not being right. But in the end, I don't think it's a terrible model just to have around. But yeah, overall, I'd give this engine, I think, a 5.5 out of 10. It has its good qualities, but at the end of the day, there's no changing, that face, no matter what sort of other Thomas face you want to put on this. But yeah, I hope you all have enjoyed this video, and thank you all for watching.